At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer for the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. This is essentially the preseason form of the Baseball Betting Show, as come opening day, come March 30th at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, we're going to be back to every single day giving you guys podcasts, picks, and analysis on every single game on the betting board, as we're bringing back Touch 'em All once again. It is going to be absolutely glorious, but I know that many of you guys like some season win totals, so I do want to give you guys a little bit of a season preview, and I do want to throw out there the opportunity for you guys to ask me some questions I can answer during the early part of the baseball season, answer some of these on my VSiN show, The Greg Peterson Experience, as well. That is from midnight to 3, give you guys a little bit of bonus opportunity to be able to listen to my insights with regards to baseball there as well. So I do want to take this opportunity to do that, but we're going to have a great podcast today with Andrew Caley. He is over there at Covers, does an amazing job covering baseball. He is going to be joining me in segment number 2. We're going to ask him about a few teams that he's warm/cold on coming into the year, some of his season win totals. I'm going to be giving you guys some of the leans that I have with regards to season wins in the final segments, just some of the teams I'm a little bit more bullish/bearish on. It's a to each your own situation. I really don't do a lot of season win totals myself just because I don't like to have my money tied up, and I'm a little bit more of a game-to-game bettor. I know that many of you guys are much more season win total bettors, so I do want to serve the market. And on top of that, even though I don't do a lot of season win totals, I certainly do have takes on teams coming into the season, teams I'm probably going to be riding a little bit more, teams that I'm not going to be riding as much, teams I think could struggle towards the beginning part of the year and round into form towards the end, and vice versa as well. So I do think that this podcast, doing it right now, is a very good opportunity to be able to just kill a few birds with one stone, to be able to use that phrase. And if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, naming does not matter. As per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. I know that I did get in a few questions on that. I know that one that you guys were asking me about is money line versus run line. Should I be taking only money lines? Should I only be taking run lines? List goes on, and it's all very situational, much like for you guys that take a look at my college basketball work and my college basketball podcast. Different games require different bets. Sometimes I'll take the money line on an underdog. Now, when it comes to college basketball, I really don't go north of -110 with regards to juice. That is an exception here for baseball. I'm willing to go north of -110. You're not going to be seeing me giving out some Vegas Dave -500 money line or anything like that. That is not going to be happening. I am not going to do that to you guys, unless if it's something like the Mayweather versus McGregor fight, which you're just not going to find in baseball, because, I mean, you always want to be finding profitable opportunities, and when it comes to a like -500 money line, it has to be like the surest of sure shots, like Andrew Luck going number 1 in the draft that he went number 1, and you know what, maybe that might have been worth it. When it comes to a baseball game where a bloop and a blast can really sway that, there's really not a lot of opportunities for that to be successful, though there are times where like a -140 money line is a little bit of a better bet than a plus money run line when you get like two really dominant pitchers. You've got one team that's got a really sure-handed bullpen, and you've got another team that isn't such a sure-handed bullpen. So I'm willing to go north of -110 with regards to a money line, unlike college basketball, where you've got much more options to be able to just lay the points on like a -2.5 spread rather than lay some sort of like a minus 150, 155, something like that money line, just spitballing numbers here, but I do think that there are some profitable opportunities with laying a little bit of juice when it comes to money line / run lines in baseball, and it's just all about profitability as well, because I have a spreadsheet, and I did post up an example a few days ago on my Twitter feed at June_D1. If you're having a tough time sorting through tweets, by the way, and you're always looking for these spreadsheets, if you're looking for past days handicaps, what have you, always go to the media tab, because the media tab always has photos, and whenever I post a link up to my spreadsheet, which that is going to be a VSiN link once again, so have no fear there, that is going to be housed there, and the main reason why I house it on a VSiN link is because if I do it just via normal Google spreadsheet, I was finding that with gaining more followers, the spreadsheet would crash. This prevents crashing, which is a big reason why, so that is why I do post it up on the VSiN link instead, so that way you're actually able to view it, and you don't have to go on like off hours, set your alarm for like 3 a.m. Pacific, 6 a.m. Eastern time in order to view the sheet. That would not be good for anyone, so that is a big reason why I do that, because they're able to take much more traffic than just my normal free subscription to Google and Google Sheets. I do think that it is very important to be gauging these things situation by situation. Like, I know that I had a question a few days ago asking, should I just be taking the run line in every single game? Because the person was saying that about 25% of games in baseball land in one run. Last year it was north of 25%. If you look at a average over the last 3 years, I think that it's a shade above 25%, but last year it was up quite a bit just because you had a little bit less scoring, so it was more than 25%, and it all varies by the team. Like, if you were taking the run line with the Houston Astros night in and night out, that would have been very bad for you because they were playing a lot of one-run games. They had that dominant bullpen to be able to win those 4-3, 3-2 style games, which is a big reason why. They were also your best under team in all of baseball last year as well, but if you take a look at a team like the LA Dodgers, it felt like they either lost outright or they won by 2 runs. These are the sorts of things that I will be relaying on the podcast. I'll be noticing just throughout the season as well. And that is sort of the information that I do utilize in order to be able to handicap baseball. I do look at trends a little bit more when it comes to baseball as well, because I do think that you are able to find a little bit more when it comes to historical data, unlike college basketball, where you have so many guys transferring out. By the time you get a feel of a guy, boom, he's all of a sudden went from Iona to like St. John's or something like that. You always have those circumstances. In baseball, things remain a little bit more the same. You're able to get much better data. Things just throughout a guy's career, they do remain relatively consistent, and it is the ultimate sample size sport because you've got 162 regular season games. You've got a lot of data that shows, you know what, when the weather is colder in April and early May, the ball doesn't fly as much as in June and July, and just basic science is able to show that through as well. But I will utilize trends a little bit more in baseball. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, this guy's won 3 straight starts, we should be making him a minus 250 favorite or something like that, despite the fact that he's on like the poopy Detroit Tigers or something like that. Sorry, Detroit Tigers, but that's not something that I will be doing, but it is something that I will dive into, try to really balance recent form along with the historical trends. That is something that I tried to do with regards to the Baseball Betting Podcast, and on top of that, when it comes to like early season baseball as well, you do want to be taking a look at some of these guys and their spring training results. One of the questions I've been asked by some of you guys is if I did have any takeaways from the World Baseball Classic, and I think that the guys that partook in the Baseball Classic do have a little bit of a leg up. They've now got a little bit of a lather, a little bit of a feel as to high-pressure situations. No doubt about it, there were some unfortunate injuries to guys like Jose Altuve, Edwin Diaz, and the Edwin Diaz injury. That wasn't even from anything that happened on the field. That was from a celebration, just one of those one-in-a-million things that happen. So hopefully that doesn't cause the World Baseball Classic to be any sort of peril, though. I saw from Bob Nightingale, it looks like it's going to be back for 2026, which I do like to see because I thought that that was a tremendous event, and I do think that you get a little bit of a leg up from being able to identify some of these guys. Like, something that stood out to me, Luis Arias was on the Twins last year, he's now going to be on the Miami Marlins this year, was never really a power guy. He had that 2-home run game, I believe it was, against Venezuela. That's something that is now in my memory bank, being like, okay, maybe I need to take a look at his power numbers a little bit more. When it comes to engaging spring training. It's not like if a guy has one bad spring training start, it's like, oh, we're going to need to fade him at the beginning part of the year. What I'm looking for a lot more when identifying some of these spring training numbers, identify guys that sort of stopped and start, dealt with an injury. These are the guys that you do probably want to fade going into the season. A prime example of this from last year was Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler. You may recall he was tremendous towards the end part of last season. That first month and a half, he was terrible because I think that he had like COVID or some sort of an illness. He was dealing with an injury. He could not get in his work. It was sort of a stop and start spring training. These are guys that early on in the season, you do want to be taking a look at and you want to think, okay, that's not necessarily too terrific there. Meanwhile, when it comes to just that early May, once they get in a few starts, they're able to look like themselves, then you're able to find good value on them because a lot of people are starting to fade them a little bit because they were done dirty by a guy like Zach Wheeler in the month of April, and they're thinking, oh, this guy is trash and things like that, when in reality, he just needed to get warmed up, he just needed to get into rhythm, and boom, now you're able to find very good value on him, you're able to ride him, and until the books catch up, you're able to find some very nice value there. You also do want to be taking a look at ballpark dimensions as well. I know that out there in Detroit, it appears as though the ballpark dimensions have changed a little bit, and I will be doing a bit more of this the next week myself to make sure I didn't miss anything, because we recall last season, Baltimore home run numbers were way down because they were giving up just ding-dongs left, right, and sideways. During the 2020-2021 seasons, they made the fence a little bit taller and pushed it back a little bit more last season, and all of a sudden Jordan Lyles was able to have himself a very nice season, and you do want to be taking a look at some of these advanced metrics as well. I do think that taking a look at something like fielding independent is very important, and you want to be taking a look at similar faces in new places as well, because there are some guys, I'm looking at you, Cole Irvin of the Oakland A's, that they very much were beneficiaries of the ballpark that they pitched in. There are some guys that they had like an ERA of like 2 in Oakland, and then on the road they had an ERA of like 6. If that guy now moves away from Oakland, you know what, that's something that you do want to take a look at, and you do want to be taking a look at some of these regression stats as well. Like Baseball Savant is one that I certainly do take a look at, because when it comes to the amount of home runs that a pitcher gave up a season ago, you want to take a look at, because they sort of have lines of demarcation for it. Like mostly out, no doubt home runs, where it would have been a home run in all 30 ballparks, doubters, balls that probably shouldn't have went out, but you know what? It went out in like 2 out of 30 parks, and he just so happened to be in one of those 2 parks on that given day. That is something that I take a look at. Like, Garrett Cole wasn't necessarily unlucky with the deep ball last season. He was one of the top players in terms of giving up home runs last season. He gave up a lot of no-doubt home runs, and that is something that I do take note of in that Garrett Cole. He gets a lot of strikeouts, and at the same time, he still is giving up quite a few home runs. I believe that he's going to be pitching opening day against the New York Giants, so that certainly is of note. And I mean, it sounds very simple, but if you have yet to, just catch yourself up on some of these offseason news and notes, like the fact that Justin Verlander is no longer with the Houston Astros. That's something that you do want to take a note of. I mentioned the fact that Edwin Diaz is going to be out for the season for the New York Mets. Jose Altuve, he gets hit by a pitch for the World Baseball Classic, so he's going to be out the first 2 or so months with the Houston Astros. Now is a great time to be able to catch up with this, and it's not like college basketball where you've got 363 D1 teams. It is a Herculean feat to try to get through all of them, and I don't know how one is able to do so. With 30 teams, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a bear, especially if you're trying to take a look at some of these prospects that were duking it out for jobs, starting jobs, and that is something that you do want to look at as well. How have some of these minor leaguers been able to partake in spring training? Are some of these guys going to be up right away? Is it maybe one where you want to put a bookmark in it, like, all right, this guy might be starting out at the minor league level and then working his way up, and then you also want to be taking a look at perhaps the last month or 2 of the season. Something that I've always had success with myself is taking a look at some of these baseball splits and being like, okay, what guy after the All-Star break was really able to round into form? You guys remember one of my guys from last year, Cal Quantrill, and just the ridiculous amount of starts that he was able to win towards the back half of last season. Riding that horse was absolutely tremendous for us, and just trying to identify some of those guys, taking a look at fielding independent in relation to ERA. Like, if you take a look at it, Kevin Gausman got quite a bit unlucky last year with the Toronto Blue Jays. Those are all things I recommend. So I tried to hit as many questions as humanly possible here in segment number 1. Like I said, if there's something that was not answered, if you've got question marks in general with regards to my handicapping style, I'll be answering those all throughout the baseball season, and I'm sure that I'll have quite a few when it comes to the first days of the regular season at @GUnit_81 on Twitter. And as I stated a little bit earlier, we're going to have the spreadsheet every single day updated for you guys, and I always post these up a little bit in advance as well, because I do not want my numbers to be influenced by the handicap of others, to be influenced by the handicap of bookmakers. Like, when it comes to games that are going to be going on Friday, that'll typically go up like Thursday at 6 a.m. before you get those midday, late day openers on Thursday for the Friday games, for example. So hopefully I answered all of your questions, and if I did not, at @GUnit_81 on Twitter. But a man that is going to do a great job of answering many of your season win total questions, that'd be Andrew Caley. He does amazing work over at Covers. Coming up next, he is going to be joining me. We're going to be taking a look at a few teams that he's bullish, bearish on, what he's taking a look at in the futures market, and so much more right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Preseason Family Podcast.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units return, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their MBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Preseason Family Podcast. And it is great to be joined by this man as we go north of the border to be joined by Andrew Caley. He does absolutely tremendous work over there at Covers. When it comes to the MLB season, you're going to be getting his bat flip and pick of the day. That's where he specializes with the Toronto Blue Jays, but he does a great job covering all 30 teams in Major League Baseball. One of the best at being able to cover everything that we get out there on the diamond. And you're able to follow him on Twitter at Covers_Caley. Last name is spelled Caley. Andrew, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Always a pleasure being here, Greg. Just excited to talk some seams and some seams betting with you.
Absolutely, and this is pretty much a fourth year that you've joined me on the baseball show. First time was actually to talk KBO, so I mean, this time around it certainly is much more cheery, but we do have a little bit of a new ball of wax to talk about. Not a new league or anything like that, but there have been some rule changes that have been made with Major League Baseball here in the offseason. Bigger bases, which I know that is going to increase stealing a little bit, but that's not something that really makes too big of an impact for me. I think the biggest thing is gauging how these batters and pitchers are going to be working with the new clocks. You've got the batter's clock, you've got the pitch clock. Does this change your handicapping at all? And is this going to be changing our outlook on any of these teams at all? Because I do think that this is a little bit situational. We've gotten a good little feel for everything in spring training, but I do think that when the rubber meets the road in actual regular season games, it's probably going to take a little bit of adjustment on both sides, and I do think that it's pretty much a net neutral.
It's a really, really interesting situation, Greg. Usually when I'm coming into betting a baseball season, I tend to look at unders and teams that have strong starting pitching because I feel that it is quicker for a major league pitcher to get himself ramped up for a baseball season as opposed to hitters these days because guys are taking so few ABs in spring training that I'd say it takes them almost to May to get enough bats under their belt to actually feel comfortable at the dish. But instead now, we're getting all of these changes which are explicitly for improving offense. The defensive shift limits, obviously. You can't have 4 outfielders anymore. You can't have 3 infielders on one side of the bags. Well, there's going to be a lot of left-handed hitters that are going to be really happy about that. So you were talking about situational spots for teams. Go look at teams that have left-handed heavy lineups that have been struggling to get some hits in recent years, and they're going to get more opportunities to see balls go through the infield now. And then, of course, there's this pitch clock. Guys like Max Scherzer and some of these savvy guys, if you've been watching Max Scherzer during the spring, he's literally been testing out exactly what he can and cannot get away with. I haven't been seeing that from everybody else. Expect the veteran guys to handle it pretty well for the most part, that they know what they're getting. But it's going to be interesting to see how back-end rotation guys handle this situation when they're not just battling command, they're now battling this clock as well. So it'll be interesting to see how books set these totals early on. You're used to seeing these 7.5s a lot in April baseball betting, but as we've seen during the spring, we've been seeing a lot of high totals in the spring, and I think that's going to carry over into this. But maybe it'll take a little while, and maybe it's something we can take advantage of early in the season.
I think that it is so interesting to take a look at, and I don't think we're really going to know until we actually get everything that happens out there on the field, and that is just part of it as well. Whether it be to the positive or to the negative, it is going to be a little bit of a pain, but you know what? There's going to be a lot of fun with it as well. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Andrew Caley. He does an amazing job over at Covers. And Andrew, how do you take a look at some of these teams coming into the upcoming season? Because I do think that the ones that had guys in the World Baseball Classic, the ones that didn't get hurt, obviously, because the Mets, the World Baseball Classic was not kind to them. Edwin Diaz, it wasn't anything that happened on the field, but he's out for the season. That's a big, giant blow for them. So you really do feel for them. But all in all, I do think that these guys like Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, that they had good showings out there in the World Baseball Classic. I know that there were some guys from Team Japan that are coming over to the U.S. So a team like the Boston Red Sox, I think that they're going to be net beneficiaries from what we saw a few days ago in the World Baseball Classic. It was high-level baseball. Guys were in as competitive of an environment as you're going to find for a non-regular season game, and I think that it's overall a net positive for these guys that partook in just for the game in general.
100% when it comes to the game of baseball. I don't know how anybody could say seeing Shohei Ohtani strike out Mike Trout to win the World Baseball Classic isn't great for the game of baseball. That was just such an incredible moment to throw that slider in that situation. It was pitching at its best and gamesmanship at its best. It was just wonderful to watch. It kind of gets back to how I used to look at spring training in previous years. Guys weren't getting real at-bats or enough at-bats against top-quality pitching. And the guys who were in the World Baseball Classic, they got those at-bats. This was competitive baseball. They were getting real swings in there. I don't know, teams like the Phillies that had Trey Turner just go off. He's going to be in a groove once he gets back to camp, and the season's only a short few days away. They also had JT Realmuto, who was hitting very well in the tournament as well. There's, I think, a huge benefit to those guys who are playing in that tournament.
Yeah, I think so as well. And when it comes to any of the teams that might have had a few guys in the World Baseball Classic, are there any teams with regards to some futures, odds to win the division, win totals, what have you, that you're either stock up or stock down on? Because with the LA Angels, they had a lot of primetime guys in there. I just still don't know if I could get behind that team, because at last check, a lot of books are posting their win total right around about an 82.5 or so, depending upon what book you're looking at. And hard for me to necessarily get on board with regards to the LA Angels to the positive or the negative, because they just seem to disappoint one way or another. But any teams in particular that you're taking a look at in the futures market and you're thinking, man, you know what? There are a couple guys in the World Baseball Classic that look good. Maybe I should be a little bit more stock up on them.
I think we have this conversation every single year, Greg, about the Angels. Like, oh, this could be the year. And they always set that total at about the 82.5. And it's a really tempting number because they're like, oh, geez, they've got Shohei. They've got Mike Trout. I want to say that this is the year they figured it out, because they didn't spend big money this year, but they went out and made some kind of savvy moves. Brandon Drury was there. Gio Urshela. Hopefully Anthony Rendon is finally healthy for them. Hunter Renfroe, just like not big splashy moves, but depth moves. So maybe that's exactly what they needed. I don't love Tyler Anderson as one of their best pitchers, but what I did see someone who would impress me was Patrick Sandoval, who shut down Japan for almost 5 innings in that World Baseball Classic semifinal. If he can keep going the way he was pitching last year and what we saw in that tournament, like, that's a really good sign. Also, obviously, the health of Shohei is the biggest deal for them. If They're saying they want him to pitch every sixth day. We might see the most innings from him we've seen him as a starter, and I think he's still improving as a pitcher, which is just kind of scary when you think about it. Of the teams with players in the tournament, it almost has to be the Angels just because they had so many guys in it and they all performed pretty well. Another team, like I said, was the Phillies. I like seeing their guys go, and you can get them at 18-1 to win, 20-1 to win the World Series. It's obviously the National League East is a very tough division, but I think it's going to be a battle like it is every year. And to see the Braves at like 8-1 and the Mets at 9 or 10-1, like why are the Phillies at twice as long odds right there when they have arguably just as good a pitching staff as any of those other teams and maybe have the deepest lineup of them all as well?
A very interesting ordeal, and it does feel like we have that conversation every single year about the LA Angels. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Andrew Caley of Covers, and when it comes to taking a look at futures and season win totals as well, it is a little bit different this year as well, just due to the schedule, because I think the big changes that everyone's noting is the pitch clock that we were talking about a little bit earlier, but I do think that a big impact on this year as well is going to be now the fact that every team is going to be playing every other NL and AL team, so we're going to be seeing a little bit more interleague play happening this year. What sort of teams do you think benefit the most / least from it? Because just from my vantage point, if you're one of the top teams in like the AL Central, where that division is just bad with teams like the Tigers, the Royals, what have you, the top teams out there, they really get the deficit of that. Meanwhile, for the, say, Colorado Rockies, Arizona Diamondbacks, they should be thanking the heavens that they don't have to play the LA Dodgers and the San Diego Padres so much this year.
And like I can pile on there, like my Toronto Blue Jays there, they've got a win total of 91.5, and you can call it bias if you want, but I really like the over for them. One, for that reason you just mentioned, they don't have to play as many American League East games this year, and they can play more teams like the Tigers and the Royals instead of having to go up against 4 teams that had more than 80 wins last season. And the other was the Boston Red Sox, who can always bounce back at a moment's notice, it feels like. So very tough division. The Jays have won at least 91 games in each of the last 2 seasons. And I really, really like what they did this offseason. And this might just be the optimist in me. I should probably be a pessimist when it comes to them. But as a team, they're saying all the right things this year. They've gotten rid of the home run jacket. They've said we're young and we've been having fun, but now it's business time. We really need to take advantage of the talent that's around us. They made some savvy little moves too. Chris Bassett's a great addition, and Dalton Varsho, great defensively. Kiermaier now. Their moves were clearly to balance out the lineup with some left-handed bats and to be a very strong defensive team. They're perfect for this conversation, Greg, because they also were the team that shifted the most in baseball last year too. Now they have to adjust and have better defenders if they're going to not do that as much. I think that they will improve on that, and with the easier schedule, I think they easily get over that 92 wins this year.
And with the Blue Jays as well, you mentioned the fact that they shifted a lot, but something else that shifted was the dimensions of the ballpark. I think that the Tigers were the other team that had a very small shift with regards to some of their ballpark dimensions as well, but with the Blue Jays ballpark, the fences have been moved in a little bit, but they've been made a little bit taller. What do you think that this is going to do with regards to home run hitting? Because it looks like it's going to be a little bit more of a wonky outfielder, and I do think that adding a more defensive-oriented outfielder, Kevin Kiermaier, does give them a little bit more of an advantage in a ballpark that will probably play a little bit more to extra base hits because of the funky fences.
It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays early on, but you can see what the team's thinking, the management's thinking was when they assembled this team. They want to be able to defend those walls well and better than teams that are coming in. Rogers Center was already a home run friendly ballpark, and there aren't too many wall scrapers in Rogers Center. I can see even more home runs hit there as well, but it's just in general now going to be a very hitter friendly ballpark. And if you don't have those good defensive outfielders, you could see a lot of high numbers in Blue Jays games this year.
No doubt about it. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Andrew Caley. He does great work over there at Covers. And Andrew, we've been mostly talking about a few teams that we're a little bit stock up on. I do agree with you with the Blue Jays. And honestly, the Baltimore Orioles, with having to face off against teams like the Blue Jays, the Yankees, what have you, fewer and fewer times. I do think that their win total of 76.5 does feel a little bit low. Currently juiced at minus 125, but I think that they're a team that they could be able to get to 500. But I take a look at a bunch that they made a lot of offseason moves in the Texas Rangers. Right now we're finding their win total at 82.5. It feels like every single year, to the credit of the Rangers, they at the very least try. They've been a bad team in recent years, but they're spending money. They are trying to get a good product out there. I just think that once again, this might blow up in their face. I just have no idea if we're going to get Jacob deGrom for even 2/3 of his season at this point. That's a big, giant question mark. They obviously spent big money in the offseason last year, bringing in the likes of Corey Springer, revamping that lineup, and that came up snake eyes for them. What do you think of the Texas Rangers coming into the season? Because they made a lot of splash moves, but I don't know if it's going to result in them being able to get above 500.
I don't know if it's boring to agree with you all the time, but I'm on the under on their win total because it's one of these things where I think I have to see it before I could bet on the over. Like you said, Jacob deGrom is one of my favorite pitchers in baseball. You know that I've been betting him for years with unders in first 5 inning totals. He got his payday, and I hope he's healthy. I really do, but he just hasn't been for a while now, and expecting him to pitch for a full season, I think, is asking a lot. This rotation they've kind of cut and paste together, like guys who could be good, but maybe not. Nathan Eovaldi, sure. Andrew Heaney, sure. Like solid guys, but like they're not the guys they used to be as well. And when it comes to hitting, yes, you know what you're going to get out of Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, but when it came to the rest of the team, there wasn't a whole lot there for support, and I think that could kind of be the same sort of situation this year. They didn't make too many moves to help bolster that lineup. They could hit some home runs, but maybe not much else. And like I said, if deGrom's not healthy, that's a problem. I'm not huge on the bullpen. I just don't see it. I'm on the under for them.
With the Texas Rangers, it's going to be very fascinating to see how they fare out there in the AL West, which they have to face off against the Seattle Mariners and also the Houston Astros a little bit less, but at the same time, still going to be suffering an uphill battle with that as well. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Andrew Caley over at Covers. And Andrew, I know that we've been mostly talking about teams, but are there any specific players that you're taking a look at for this upcoming year, whether it's a player that you're taking a look at in the futures market saying, hey, he's got good value on like the Cy Young, MVP, insert your award here, or maybe there's a guy or two that's a little bit overvalued, because I know that we were poo-pooing on the Mets a little bit, the fact that they don't have Edwin Diaz, but I think having two very aging pitchers in Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, at some point, Father Time is going to be catching up with them, and I do fear that it could be this year for them. It's a big reason why I'm not necessarily too bullish on the Mets. I think that those are guys that they've been very reliable for a very long time, but I would not really want to be taking too much of a look at them for this upcoming season in terms of any sort of award, what have you. Are there any guys that you personally have been diving into, either to the positive or the negative?
First, for the Mets, I'm in big agreement here with you. If they get 20 starts out of both Verlander and Scherzer, like that's a big win for them. They're the third and fourth favorites to win the National League Cy Young Award. It makes me feel nervous for Mets fans. It was starting with the Diaz injury and now the makeup of the team. I'm uneasy. Guys, I am bullish on. I hate to keep tooting the horn for the Blue Jays guys, but I like Kevin Gausman to win the American League Cy Young at 20-1. Hasn't given up a run in spring. I know it's spring, but he came into this offseason saying he was disappointed in the way he pitched last year, and he led the American League in fifth. And he still has one of the most unhittable pitches in baseball with that splitter of his. The Jays are going to win a lot of baseball games. I know Manoah's the guy getting a lot of the headlines right now, but Gausman's like the steadier guy. You feel like you know what you're going to get with him night in, night out. Another guy I'm really high on, Christian Javier for the Houston Astros. He only pitched 146 innings for them last year. They've had a problem with moving him to the pen sometimes. For some reason, they just haven't seemed to love him there in Houston. But I love him personally. Getting him to win the American League Cy Young at 20-1 is another future I'm going to have as well. He had 194 strikeouts in those 140 some odd innings. Second in the big leagues when it came to strikeout rate. I'm also going to take him lead the MLB in strikeouts this year, because now that Verlander's gone, I think that the Astros are going to be asking more of Javier in this rotation. And I just really love his stuff. Anytime you get like a Shohei and Christian Javier matchup on the mound, and you're just going to see strikeouts all game, and it's a ton of fun. It's a guy I'm really looking at.
Absolutely, and Christian Javier, he was so good with the Astros last year, and Astros might need a little bit more out of him this year, because with having Jose Altuve get injured in the World Baseball Classic, that hurts an offense that, we were on this podcast talking about a lot. it wasn't necessarily the world's greatest last year. The Astros were actually the top under team of any team that made the playoffs in all of baseball last year. If you were betting their unders, you made a whole bunch of money. And if you follow this man's advice, you're probably making a ton of coin as well. As Andrew, I know you do a great job on so many fronts. You take a look at the great game of the NBA. You do a nice job with regards to NFL and college football. And I know this time of year, you're getting all ramped up for baseball. It's going to be here in less than a week. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Oh, buddy, I cannot wait for baseball and those bat flipping picks every day. Those are my favorite Blue Jays picks for 162 games. Really excited to get that underway. You can find those on Twitter at @covers_Caley. That's Caley.
Andrew does an amazing job taking a look at the great game of baseball, and I'm sure that he's going to be joining me quite a bit on the podcast during the regular season, and it is always a pleasure to get his insights as they're some of the best in the business. A big thanks to Andrew for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming next, we're just going to be taking a look at some season wins that I personally think that there's a little bit of value on for this upcoming MLB season, and if we've got any, we'll throw in there some player awards as well. That's on the flip side here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It was great to be able to get Andrew Caley aboard, and might I say, it's great that we just have baseball coming back into our lives in general. He did a great job of being able to take a look at some of the teams, some of the bets that he likes coming into this upcoming MLB season. I know that he is based out there north of the border in the great country of Canada, so it's always great to get Andrew Caley of Covers aboard on this podcast. Now it is that time of the podcast that I just give you what I'm taking a look at for this upcoming MLB season, some of the teams, some of the players in general, as I'm not going to go through every single season win total on this podcast just because, for one, like I said at the beginning, I'm really not much of one for season wins. I personally have a pretty clean portfolio. I'm much more of a game-to-game bettor, but there are a few teams that I take a look on the board, and I do think that things are a little bit too long / too short on them, and we did talk about many of them with Andrew Caley. Like, the Mets are currently having a season win total of 91.5 over at DraftKings as I record this, and I am recording this Friday evening, and I do think that that's a little bit too lofty. You lose someone like Edwin Diaz, who was the most dominant closer in all the big leagues, at the very least in the National League. Emmanuel Clase, he might be able to give them a little bit of chase with the Cleveland Guardians, but losing a guy like him is big, and you always have to fear these aging pitchers in baseball as well. I know that Andrew Caley was pointing out that if you're able to get 20 starts apiece out of Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, that you'd be feeling pretty good about that. And it's hard for me to necessarily disagree with Jose Quintana, one of their big acquisitions, also being injured. That does put this team in a little bit of a world of hurt. So that is one that I'm a little bit more bearish on. One that we really did not discuss, and I think that this plays a lot into the scheduling itself, and the reason why I'm bullish on them. The Baltimore Orioles win total is at 76.5. Now, typically, the preseason is where we poo-poo all over the Baltimore Orioles, being like, this is going to be a team that loses 100 games, and it's been a story as true as the dawn of time. But for the Baltimore Orioles, they were, but prior to the month of September, a top 6 team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They've got many of their guys back from a season ago. I think that this is a team that's really able to ascend, and I know that they've got a guy that was able to get a call up towards the end part of the season, Gunnar Henderson, and I know that if you're looking at Rookie of the Year award, he is a betting favorite at plus 235, and I think he deserves to be the favorite at plus 235. I don't necessarily think that there is necessarily a ton of value, honestly, if you'd be looking in that market for the American League Rookie of the Year, someone like a Josh Jung at plus 1,800, up-and-coming prospect for the Texas Rangers that got a cup of coffee at the big league level last year. He's got a little bit of value, and with the Houston Astros moving on from Justin Verlander, Hunter Brown, who was able to get a few starts last year, I think he just provides a little bit more value. Obviously, I think that Jung and Brown have less of a chance to be able to win that award, but Gunnar Henderson, I think, is going to be very big for this team. They moved on from Trey Boom Mancini last year, but all in all, you've got a very good young team in the Baltimore Orioles that no longer are they going to have to play as many games against the Toronto Blue Jays, against the New York Yankees, just a completely locked and loaded division, one where I think the Red Sox are going to be better this year than they were last year. I don't think that the Red Sox are going to be any sort of a monster. Like I remember the last time they were below 500, they were then able to make like the divisional round of the playoffs, and now we're seeing that Red Sox win total at 78.5, and I could see them getting back to 500. If anything, I'd be taking a look at the over there. I did like what they did in the offseason. They have been dealing with a few injuries. I know that they pick up Justin Turner down for what? I think that he's been dealing with a few ailments here in the offseason, but I do think that they should be a little bit better just due to the schedule itself, and I am in a bit of agreement with Andrew Caley in that the Toronto Blue Jays, who I'm still seeing their win total right around 91.5, they do provide good value because they do have to play fewer games against the New York Yankees and what have you, but here's a few stats on the Toronto Blue Jays. They had the top batting average away from home last season. They've got much of the same core back from last year. They did move on from a guy or two, but you know what, you bring in someone like a Dalton Varsho, Kevin Kiermaier should be able to help out that outfield, and I think that they're still going to do a good job with station-to-station baseball. Among American League teams, they were the only team that away from home averaged north of 4.72 runs per game with 5.14, so they were certainly able to supply a bunch of offense with that regard, so I do think that that is very good for this Toronto Blue Jays team, and Kevin Gausman was just so unlucky. His fielding independent was tops out there in the big leagues, and yet he had an ERA well above 3. So that is a team that I do take a look at, and I do think that there's a lot of upside with them. I think what is also going to be very interesting is to see how some of these AL Central teams respond to this more balanced schedule as well, because we always notice that with the AL Central, you had a few slugs out there, the Detroit Tigers, the Kansas City Royals, which, I mean, man, you want to talk about a disappointment from last year, the Detroit Tigers, and right now with their season win total, I am seeing that at a 69.5, and honestly, if I had to take a look at it, I wouldn't hate an over, only because with the Detroit Tigers, really Murphy's Law hit them last year. Every single one of their pitchers got hurt. I mean, it was just like, man, can someone cut these guys a little bit of a break? And there's no way that the bats are going to be as terrible as they were last year, because they did move the ballpark dimensions in a little bit as well. Detroit was playing very pitcher friendly, and it still is going to, especially when it comes to the month of April, the month of May, because if you are out there in the Midwest, which I was born and raised in the great state of Wisconsin, we all know how the weather is. I mean, you get the occasional snow out when it comes to April, which is always a very interesting ordeal, but I do take a look at this Detroit Tigers team, and the bullpen wasn't horrible for them. They were able to get some okay starts out of someone like Garrett Hill. Someone like Matt Manning looked relatively solid when he was actually out there firing on all cylinders. They picked up Michael Lorenzen in the offseason. They've got Matthew Boyd back in the fold, which he just has never really been able to put it together, but he's got solid stuff. Spencer Turnbull missed pretty much all of last year as well. If he's able to come back and if he's able to look relatively okay, I do think that there might honestly be a little bit of upside with the Tigers, but I'm really down on that division. If you're looking at any team to be able to win it, you're able to get the Twins at plus money. It's not necessarily the world's worst look, but what I do think might be the best value in terms of all these divisional odds, because quite a few of them, they are a little bit more lopsided. Like right now we're seeing in the NL East, Braves are at a plus 105, which I'd like a little bit of a better plus number, but that's not too bad. But I mean, it's lagging a little bit of a number, but I just don't know who challenges the St. Louis Cardinals this year at a minus 125. The St. Louis Cardinals team has become such a machine. I personally am someone that was born and raised a Milwaukee Brewers fan, and I tell you right now, Christian Yelich is a big, giant waste of money for this team. Corbin Burns is having kerfuffles with the management, which that it's not necessarily too terrific. The trade of Josh Hader was so cataclysmically bad. Yeah, I mean, you've got Brandon Woodruff still with the fold. That's very good for this team. Who knows what you're going to be able to get out of Freddie Peralta, because when he's out there, he's very good, but he's been unable to stay healthy in recent years, and you're right now paying millions upon millions of dollars for a guy in Christian Yelich who had a whopping 14 home runs last year, tied for 127th in the big leagues. So, yeah, I can't necessarily get behind them. And with the St. Louis Cardinals, I mean, it's just so Cardinals-like that they make a savvy move, because they lose Yadier Molina in the offseason. How do they replace him? they bring in Wilson Contreras. I mean, that's just exactly what they do. They've done a good job mixing and matching with their bullpen. It's a little bit more of a pitcher-friendly ballpark, and they were able to have the season that they did last year with getting darn near nothing whatsoever out of Captain Jack Flaherty. If he's able to be, at the very least, somewhat healthy, as it looks like he's been able to get in a little bit more of his work here in the offseason, that's big for them. Jordan Montgomery was a very good trade acquisition, and you always do want to be placing a little bit of value, in my opinion, on some of these teams that, they know what the heck they're doing at the trade deadline, and, here's a novel concept. Don't trade away their best reliever at the trade deadline and completely just lose the locker room like some team by the name of the Milwaukee Brewers did. Yeah, throwing a little bit of shade there, but with the St. Louis Cardinals as well, you got so many young guys in that outfield as well, like Dylan Carlson, Lars Nootbaar and company. These guys, I do think that they're just going to continue to ascend. You got nothing whatsoever out of Paul DeJong last year, and yet you were still able to have the season that this team did. I do like the fact that they were able to pick up some more ancillary relievers as well, like Chris Strand, I think is going to be solid in that bullpen this year as well. The Cardinals are just a team that they know what the heck they are doing. A team that I find to be very fascinating as well, because I've heard multiple opinions on this team. It is the Miami Marlins, and the way that I'd be taking a look at the Marlins, because right now their win total is at 76.5, is I, at this point, would not touch it. It was at 74.5 a little bit before, and honestly, 74.5 would not have been a bad number, but I think that once again, with the Miami Marlins, as we've done with them last few seasons, you probably want to be taking a look at unders with them. They did make a nice, savvy offseason acquisition, being able to pick up Luis Arias, who did have a multi-home run game in the World Baseball Classic. I think that was in the Venezuela versus U.S. game, and that is something that does impress me, because last year I had 8 home runs more than Greg Peterson, but that's a good move. Gene Segura is once again a guy that does a solid job of being able to get on base. Gene Segura, not necessarily going to be a power guy, so you can't expect a lot of home runs from the Miami Marlins as well. Jorge Soler, a few years ago, was a really good home run hitter. He did not show that last year, and I don't think this ballpark is necessarily set up for him. Avicio Garcia, he had 8 home runs last season. He's been an okay home run hitter throughout his career, but I think for the Miami Marlins, they're really going to be looking to build themselves with their pitching, and if you could get Trevor Rogers back to being the Trevor Rogers of old from like 2-3 years ago, I do think that's a Marlins team that once again, they're going to be in a bunch of 3-2, 4-3, 2-1 sort of slobber knocker games. So those are sort of the things that you do want to be taking a look at. And if you just go back to last season as well, I was pointing this out with the Houston Astros. Now, I do think that being able to bring back Michael Brantley, who was missing from last year, that is going to be able to help out the offense a little bit, but sometimes a team's reputation is able to give you some really good value when it comes to game-to-game betting, and taking a look at some of the totals as well, because something that I pointed out in the first segment is if you were taking a look at the run line time and time again with regards to the Houston Astros, you were splish-splash taking a bath. Meanwhile, if you were taking a look at the run line with the LA Dodgers, you were able to make a bunch of money. And the big reason why is that the Astros played 61.8% of their games to the under. If you did nothing but take unders in Houston Astros games last year, you made over 30 units. It's just absolutely incredible, and it's because we always think of the Astros having all these big boppers like Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, and what have you, but their pitching was really, really good last season, like the Miami Marlins. 54.6% of their games, even with their diminished totals, went under as well. So I do find that to be fascinating, and there were 4 teams in the MLB last year that had north of a 52.3% over rate, so you were able to make money on their overs. The New York Mets were one of them, and once again, we always have the reputation of, they've got Jacob deGrom, they've got this great bullpen, what have you, but they did have guys like Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo do a really good job in that lineup last season. The Kansas City Royals, flat out, because they couldn't pitch. The Atlanta Braves were objectively one of the best offenses in all the big leagues last season, and Atlanta is a pretty hitter-friendly ballpark. And then the Blue Jays, I pointed out how good they were with their offense on the road last season. Those are teams that I don't think that we should be seeing too much regression with regards to their offenses. With the Kansas City Royals, maybe, because the Royals do have some young up-and-coming arms, and that's a big reason why we did see a lot of overs with them, just because they had no idea whatsoever what they were doing in the bullpen. It was a big, giant mess. They're just looking to really find their way with regards to some of these starters, and I do like what I've seen out of some of these younger guys, like I do think that someone like a Brad Keller might be able to have an okay year. I'm not going to be hyping him up saying, oh yeah, you want to be investing all your shekels in Brad Keller like Cy Young futures or anything like that. Please do not do that. But, I mean, someone that was injured all of last season and someone like a Richard Lovelady, yes, that's his real name, he coming back should be able to help out this team. They did have quite a few guys go down in the bullpen. They were just never necessarily themselves. They pick up someone like a Ryan Yarbrough, so I do think that they're going to be a little bit better with that regard. And they do bring in Nick Wickren to be able to help out that bullpen. I would not be surprised if he's going to be closing out some games for them this season as well. So I do think that there might be a little bit of regression with that regard, but I just still go back to the Texas Rangers, and I still think that they have the possibility of being a sub-500 team. And with the Texas Rangers, it's just one of those cases where it feels like there are some teams that they try everything humanly possible to get it right, and they're just unable to do so. And the Rangers do have some good top-flight talent, like Marcus Semien, Corey Seager at the top of the lineup. They're rock solid, and for Semien, he went like 50-some-odd games last year without hitting a single homer. He was able to get it going late in the season, but what are you going to be able to get behind him? Guys like Robbie Grossman are guys I don't necessarily have a lot of faith in. Depth is very important when it comes to betting on season win totals, and for the Texas Rangers, they really don't have a lot of that. So that's a big reason why I'm a little bit off of them. So it is going to be a very interesting season. Those are some leans that I have for this upcoming MLB season. And like I said, the Baseball Betting Show, it is going to be coming back daily for opening day, which is March 30th. And the spreadsheet, as soon as we figure out some of these starters for opening day, which more and more of them are going to be announced, I would think that by either Monday or Tuesday, I should have a link for you there. That is going to be up on my Twitter feed at @GUnit_81. And if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at @GUnit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, the me does not matter. As per usual, please send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire on whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. I know that we gave you guys a little bit of information here. It would be hard to cram in every single thing that happened in the offseason into one podcast. So if there's something that I didn't address, say you want to address within the first few days of the MLB season, more than happy to dive into chatter there. So I've got you guys covered on that front, and a man that had us covered today, Andrew Caley, who does amazing work at Covers. I'll be coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means I'll be doing that starting up opening day, March 30th. That podcast will be up midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, so I will catch you then. Thank you so much for tuning in.